Okay, this movie came out months ago, but let me cook. When Transformers 1 was announced and the teasers released, I was just like anybody else thinking, man, this is going to be a mid-kids movie. But I was wrong, and rightfully so. TF1 is actually a really good movie, and I'm not just being silly. When I heard this was going to be an origin story and this was the trailer for it, I didn't think it was going to do well. Unfortunately, I was kinda right, and I wish this wasn't the case, since Transformers 1 is probably one of my favorite Transformers movies. To me, it surpasses the live-action sequels and spin-offs. Don't get me wrong, I love the first Michael Bay Transformers, but anything after that was not my cup of tea. In fact, I consider TF1 to be on par with the first live-action Transformers. I still love the first movie because the visuals in that film still hold up from 2007. And TF1 is one of the best animated Transformers movies in such a long time since the first animated feature film. And TF1 did it right. I understand that most people would see that the story was predictable and this wasn't going to do much. Except that wasn't what I expected going into this. Everyone knows Megatron hates Optimus, and there were different stories that told their origin. I wasn't expecting something that wasn't going to be inconsistent with that. The question that weighed on my mind was, how are they going to show that? Was it going to be the same way as in the comics, the TV series, or the video games? Honestly, it took me by surprise. I'm glad the story is separate from the live action movies since it can develop into a fresh new take on the franchise. They don't have to limit their options on what the story they need to tell, and they can take risks on what approach they want to establish for this film. I'm proud that this movie even got made, and the people that worked on it did a great job. So welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to dive into what makes this movie so good. The movie begins on Cybertron, where we meet our protagonist Orion Pax, the bot that has big dreams and ambitions to help his people in any way he can. Yet he's a bit of a troublemaker. He infiltrates the secret archive base to do research on the missing MacGuffin called the Matrix of Leadership. We discover how Cybertron came to be, which benefits audiences who are unfamiliar with Transformers. So it establishes the path of the Primes, who were created to protect all Transformers and their homes from threats such as the Quintessons, following the Quintesson War. The Primes were defeated, the Matrix of Leadership vanished, and Sentinel Prime, the current leader, was the only Prime who survived. Without the Matrix of Leadership, Cybertron's energy source, Energon, would cease to flow back into the planet. It was essentially the Great Drought. The only solution was to mine Energon, which is where Orion comes into play. So Orion is a low-ranking mine worker, collecting Energon for the Cybertronians. Orion and the rest of the lower ranks lack transformation cogs, which allows them to transform in the same way as other Transformers. So there's like this hierarchy of those who can transform, and how it benefits their roles and how they hold a higher ranking position. Orion gets caught and forms his hilarious escape.
Well, watch this.
He then meets up with his best friend D16, who essentially helps him out of trouble. D16 is like that one homie who can get you out of a situation. He speaks honestly, yet he doesn't like to do stuff out of his comfort zone, but he allows himself to be convinced to help his friend Orion. He also has a love for one of the Primes, Megatronus. Apparently, he's one of the best to have ever lived, so there's that, I guess. The two carry a strong friendship, like all sunshine, rainbows, and chrome. We join Orion and D16 in the mining caves as they work and get introduced to other Transformer characters such as Elita 1, who is basically the captain of the crew that mines for Energon. It doesn't go well. The cave starts to collapse and Elita ends up getting fired and dropped to rank for waste management, since Orion didn't obey any orders. Sentinel eventually appears and announces that the Matrix of Leadership is still missing, so he decides to lift spirits with an upcoming race for bots that can transform. Oh, and a break for the miners to watch the race too. Yeah, there's that, so, you know. Orion feels compelled to include both himself and D16 in the race, despite 16's objections that they can't transform and could get themselves into serious trouble. With that, Orion goes ahead and tricks his friend into joining the race. While the two made significant efforts, it all backfired. Or did it? Apparently, Sentinel saw all of this and basically praised their efforts and invited them to his quarters. Except it doesn't go that way. This guy Darkwing, who basically fired Alita and kind of is in charge of all the mines, yeah, he really hates these two. And he was basically in the race. So after being humiliated by them, he dumps them to the lowest level, doing nothing but watching trash burn. This is where we meet B-127. Yep, it's Bumblebee. It's just Bumblebee. It's B, man. And I don't care what people say. This guy needs to be protected at all costs. Look at my boy. Isn't he amazing? Aside from introductions, one of his friends, Steve, that B kept in the trash contained an old distress signal from the Primes, which also included coordinates to Cybertron's surface, where Orion believes the matrix of leadership can be found. After convincing his friends, B16 and B, they all work together to find a way to get to the surface, while unintentionally meeting up with Alita and everyone ending up on the surface. Now that the gang is here, they end up working together and finding the Matrix. However, they had no idea they weren't alone. They are almost destroyed by a ship led by the Quintessence, as they are looking for something. Of course, they avoid detection and return to their mission. When they arrive at their destination, they discover something completely unexpected. And from here, the movie just shifts from like this family-friendly tone to some serious drama. We see the Primes completely destroyed and rusted from a lost battle. All of them were left in pieces, with D16 seeing his hero Megatronus dead right in front of him. After failing to locate the Matrix, they come across Alpha Trion, a Prime who is still alive after the battle. When the crew revives him with Energon, so much happens. Like, not just exposition, but also this scene in the film where a Prime with such authority can barely walk. He sees his own brothers and sisters gone, and he has probably never felt more helpless. Then he meets the cogless bots, and everything changes. Orion tries to explain that they need to find the Matrix to save the planet and give it to Sentinel, at which point Alpha Trion reveals Sentinel's deception.
Sentinel is no Prime.
Alpha Trion explains what happened on the day the Primes fell. Sentinel betrayed them. He then kills all of the Primes to gain control of the Matrix. The problem is that the Matrix does have a defense mechanism. It can only give power to those who are worthy of wielding it, similar to Thor's hammer, but with different properties. Of course, everyone is skeptical about all this. Like, how is that possible? There's no way. This guy, we praise this guy. He protects us, he helps us, he does all these amazing things. Until they discover Sentinel gave all of the Energon collected by the miners to the Quintessence. It gets so wild that D16 just snaps.
You just had to do it, didn't you?
Me? What did I do?
You just had to break protocol.
Who cares about protocol?
I do. I care. Because nothing bad happens when you stay on protocol.
Sentinel Prime has been forcing us to work in the mines until our gears strip.
And what do you think he's going to do to us when he finds out that we know?
I'm not thinking about what he's going to do. I'm thinking about what we're going to do.
Well, that's the whole thing. You're never thinking about anything else, just yourself.
Hey, don't you want to stop him?
No, I want to kill him. I want to put Sentinel in chains and march him through the mines so everyone can see him for the false Prime that he is. I want him to suffer and then to die in darkness.
Now, I wasn't sure about this film when I first heard about it, but after seeing this scene go viral, I became very interested in seeing it. D16 felt so betrayed and disappointed, lied to, and his reality had been shattered into so many pieces that he could not help but crash out. And to top it all off, their cogs, and I mean, their transformation cogs were removed before they were even born. That is so evil that Sentinel took their natural ability to transform and used them to do his bidding for the Quintessence. I think that D16's motivations were reasonable, which is why this moment was so memorable to me. Despite this, Alpha Trion believes that they have a chance, that these four can stand up and save the people from Sentinel's empire. So Alpha Trion hands them the cogs of the former Primes, and then they possess the ability to change their world through the cogs of each Prime. So once they find out they've been discovered, Alpha Trion stays behind to ensure they return home and reveal the truth to everyone. He provides the evidence to the team and Alpha Trion then sacrifices his life to ensure Sentinel's downfall, and justice will be served. Later on, the four are ambushed by Starscream and the Cybertronian High Guard. We learn that these guys have been secretly rebelling against Sentinel since the Primes fell, and that they witnessed everything. So Orion wants them to work together to take down Sentinel as one. Except that we're talking about Starscream, who has such an ego that he does not believe in Cybertron's unity, and that there can only be one bot to rule them all. And this just leaves a lot of tension for the others. Except that D16 just starts walking away from Starscream's bullshit. This is where we finally see D16 and Starscream interact, as they beat the brakes off each other just to see who's the bigger man. It doesn't take long for D16 to prove it in a matter of seconds. This also gives him this unbelievable authority to become a leader in the eyes of the High Guard. Orion soon begins to see his friend change into someone he doesn't even recognize. Then they're ambushed again, and some are captured while the others are left behind, with the evidence destroyed. Now, they must devise a strategy, so it was time to roll out. The characters begin to slowly develop from their arcs, and we see how it all unfolds. D16's torture, Orion's speech, and the battle with Sentinel. Finally, when the truth reveals itself, it all comes crashing down. D16 has the opportunity to end it, but Orion tries to reason with 16 before he does something he could regret, but it was pointless, so Orion sacrifices himself, and D16 vanishes. We then see the birth of Megatron and Optimus Prime. This film feels unique when you see how hard the creators worked to make the story work. It makes you reconsider how the characters started in the caves and progressed to these well-known Transformers, which adds to the overall impact of the movie.
There's a lot more than meets the eye with you.
As I previously stated, this film's tone shift caught me completely off guard. The film starts out introducing us to this cast, and it's seen as an all family-friendly buddy origin story. It's interesting because this is the origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron. While watching this, it didn't occur to me how they were going to show these characters going against each other, and it felt very deliberate. We were thrown right into this serious moment of despair from the characters, the weight of losing everything and being reduced to, well, machines in a factory. And from what I've seen from the people's thoughts online, most felt that D16's actions were justified, since Sentinel did all these awful things to manipulate and lie to everyone. The moment D16 took Sentinel down felt satisfying and really brutal, almost like we wanted him to succeed, but understood he was becoming unhinged. I mean, there were some really brutal moments that were shown. The writers and animators really went in on robots getting demolished. While Orion's journey is where he begins to emerge as the leader everyone looks up to. It's a lot of fun to watch him progress from his current position. Having some fan favorites mentioned or seen was a treat. The film provided a new perspective on the planet when compared to previous films featuring Cybertron, while also providing an entire backstory for how the two Transformers became enemies. It balanced the humor and serious moments so well that I felt bad that the trailers for this film did a disservice because the film is not entirely what it appears. I appreciate that this film was created by people who are passionate about the franchise and want to make the best Transformers film. Now, I know there's some critiques about the movie's pacing, especially for D16, but I felt the pacing did a great job for the characters, and I'd like to talk about them in greater detail.
Optimus, you want to see something funny?
No.
This movie had some big names, and that made me nervous when I saw who was playing these characters. Luckily, they all did an excellent job. I was really impressed by Chris Hemsworth's performance as Orion Pax. He had the perfect voice for the character, which feels like a younger version of Optimus Prime. Throughout the film, he begins to sound similar to Peter Cullen's Optimus. Brian Tyree Henry was by far the best voice actor to play D16. I was captivated by his performance. He made me feel the pain his character was going through, how betrayed he felt, and how angry he was to be used for who knows how long. Tyree Henry nailed the motivation that the character strives for, how he doesn't see a villain, but a misunderstood and broken individual who wants to take down a system that oppressed him. While I enjoyed both Bee's and Alita's voice actors, Keegan-Michael Key and Scarlett Johansson, they had some funny moments that I actually enjoyed, and I can tell they were very consistent with their characters and how they act. Alita proves she can get the job done, but she also plays the good soldier and tries to get good with the higher-ups in any way. Bee wanted to make some friends and have a good time, all while acting similar to Michael Bay's Bumblebee, who, despite lacking a voice, was able to do the majority of the talking with his radio. It's also amusing how the creators purposefully made him talkative rather than silent, especially given how heartbreaking it would be to see him lose his voice. Out of the four, I want to say each one had something significant to add to the film, and it was done in a really cool way. Alright, I might do a little bit of a character study here, but honestly, I really want to talk about the characters individually in the best way I can.
You can't keep me in here, Megatron!
So, Orion was well written. His development began when he made reckless decisions that affected the people he cared about. It demonstrates how good of a bot Orion is. He's like that one friend who has good intentions, but not always the best ideas. At the very start of the film, he shows curiosity and continues to find something that could lead to the matrix of leadership. Based on the other bots catching him again and everyone knowing who Orion is from his reputation of getting into trouble, it's a very different change in his character. So Orion, on the other hand, wants more in life for him and his friends, with more options aside from working the mines. This could be seen as selfish on his part, but in reality, Orion feels like they should all be doing more. To prove it, he gets D16 involved in a massive race, not just for publicity, but to prove to himself that he can compete against bots who can transform.
Sentinel Prime, sir, we joined the race to show everyone our potential.
He wants to live the life that he's been given, while sharing that feeling of fun and freedom with his friend. Of course, his actions do come across as unhelpful to how others might feel after Alita gets fired, to then have D16 and himself get dropped to the lowest ranks. However, this is just the beginning of going against Sentinel's system. Orion was thinking for himself, and Sentinel was aware of this, so he arranges the meeting to deceive and remove them for violating his rules. And in this case, Sentinel wields immense power, which he simply abuses for personal gain. This, of course, doesn't prevent Orion from obtaining his approval and offering a chance to his people. Despite his unpopular reputation, he was able to persuade and bring along 3 bots on his quest to find the Matrix of Leadership. Soon, it started to cement his place when he learned the truth about Sentinel through one of the actual primes that lived after the war. Like everyone else learning this for the first time, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was right all along. And I don't mean about Sentinel, but about who he truly is and what he and his friends believe they were meant to be. It also felt like a moment of clarity, based on Alphatron's beliefs after meeting Orion and the team and what can be done to change everything. He doesn't need to be concerned about Sentinel's approval or the Matrix of Leadership anymore. Right now, he's thinking about everyone who has suffered as much as he has from the intense and dangerous labor, manipulation, and limited options. He's thinking about what they're going to do next. It's the optimism where he sees an actual change to fight back, to make a stand, and to give everyone that opportunity. Now that Sentinel has been exposed as a fraud, Alpha Trion is genuine in his belief in Orion's efforts for the betterment of Cybertron. They only have just met, but it illustrates how honorable it is for someone to give you a chance to prove yourself and support you along the way. These 4 have gone through great lengths to help their own people, and they want to make a big difference. Orion felt he could truly look up to this prime as the key to their liberation.
What defines a transformer is not the cog in its chest, but the spark that resides in their core.
When I saw this speech with the miners, I knew the writers had done an excellent job with Optimus's character, as he always uses his words to inspire those around him and to impart wisdom to those in need. Granted, he did punch Darkwing, but he deserved it after what he did to him and his friend. However, he soon realized that all of this was having a different impact on his friend D16. Orion shares D16's emotions against Sentinel, but he doesn't see how killing people will help them build a better world if they use their power to control or harm others as Sentinel has. He was worried that his friend would go down the wrong path just like Sentinel, and he was looking out for him. just like how D16 has been looking out for Orion. He saw a glimpse of that bot when he fought Starscream, and he was afraid he would lose his friend entirely. With all that they went through, Orion tried to reason with him, but with all that rage, D16 didn't want to hear it, and Orion would make the sacrifice for a bot who didn't even deserve it. With this, Orion is betrayed and loses his best friend. Orion's overarching goal in everything he did was to create a better world in which all Cybertronians, including his friend, could coexist and express themselves and be liberated. As a result, Primus himself recognized his honorable actions and selfless deeds and placed his trust in him to be Cybertron's next protector. Then Primus gives Orion the title and power of a Prime, transforming him into Optimus Prime. Optimus now possesses the previous Prime's strength, knowledge, and wisdom, allowing him to protect and save Cybertron. I think what makes this film even better was how the writers were on point with how Optimus acts during the climax of the movie. It reminded me of a Q&A with Peter Cullen where he discussed the voice of Optimus Prime.
My brother Larry, a captain in the Marine Corps, had returned from Vietnam. He was a decorated Marine, and we were sharing an apartment going through a difficult time in my life. And he would always take a little interest in where I was going every day. So he said, "Peter, where are you going today?" "I'm auditioning as a truck." He did the same thing. So I said, "But Larry, he's evidently he's a hero truck. He's a hero." And his face got somber and he said, "Peter, if you're gonna be a hero, be a real hero. Don't be a Hollywood hero type with all the BS and all the yelling and screaming and trying to be tough. Be strong enough to be gentle." So as his voice is ringing in my ears as I'm driving to the audition, and I read the copy, and Larry is just coming out. His voice, the way he talked to me. "My name is Optimus Prime."
I feel like the writers took this idea and ran with it. Orion was a troublemaker, but he was always good at heart. And the film has these moments where he tries to bring peace and not a fight, even if he has to fight to defend himself or others. He took action against the injustice that he and his people felt. He stood up for what was right, and he trusted the people in the mines to help fight back, demonstrating their capability in the same way he did when he entered that race and went to find the Matrix of Leadership. He seeks to unite others in order to bring freedom and give everyone a choice. He was never aggressive or acted as a tough guy. He was just strong enough to be gentle. Now that I've covered how great they wrote Optimus, I really want to discuss my thoughts about D16. D16 is essentially portrayed as being very obedient to the system and unwilling to risk getting in trouble. After all, what could go wrong in the mines if you make a friend who shares your interests and has your back? D16 admires Sentinel a lot at the start of the film.
Sentinel Prime, the Sentinel Prime, is up on the surface right now, risking his life for us in search of the Matrix.
So D16 works hard to help Sentinel in any way he can. And providing Energon is what he's okay with. Life is simple, and he accepts things as they are. Orion wants more, while D16 is a realist. This is one of the recurring characteristics about D16. He's honest about his feelings, and he doesn't want to be humiliated or seen as a failure in front of Sentinel. He wants to support him and is willing to do his part in all of this. He also appreciates Orion's company. While he's not always down for his ideas and putting up with his shenanigans, he's willing to make sure he'll be okay. He understands that he wants them to accomplish more together and prove their worth, and it's nice to trust someone who supports you along the way. Still, they're simply cogless bots with no ability to do anything other than what they are accustomed to. He accepts it, and he has no issues with it whatsoever. When the Iacon 5000 was announced, everything changed. The fact that Orion duped him into competing in the race, as amazing and refreshing as it felt, they were both returned to reality, where they had lost the race, and Sentinel had seen it all. This guy praises Sentinel, but not as much as Megatronus Prime, who is the greatest Prime to have ever lived. He's such a nerd. D16 plays it safe to the point where he does whatever he can to protect Orion and himself. So when he hears Orion's plans to retrieve the Matrix of Leadership from the surface, He hopes that this will improve things and show how they're more than cogless bots. D16 can only think about getting recognition from Sentinel and maintaining his integrity. Similarly to the tone shift in the film, D16 discovers the truth about Sentinel, the man he looked up to. It's where he doesn't believe it. His entire life has been a lie. The fact that the system was created to take advantage of him by using him as an expendable bot to retrieve Energon, which was then given to the enemy. Not knowing that he was being oppressed, that he had a choice. Now enraged, he lashes out at Orion for what he wishes never happened. He begins arguing about the fact that Sentinel lied to him and harbors hatred for anyone who is responsible for Sentinel's actions. To make matters worse, Sentinel took away his transformation cog. D16 no longer feels safe. He feels violated, and rightfully so. How could he have trusted a leader that deceived him? He can never trust anyone like that again. The only person he can rely on above all else is himself, his rage. The feeling of having lost so much and being upset with someone who used him for their own gain. D16 wanted more than just justice. He wanted Sentinel to die. It's a harsh statement, but given everything that has happened, he doesn't want to see Sentinel ever again. Alphatron notices how this affects him, and he doesn't say much. It's like he's been through this before, or even understood his rage as well. It hurt. He knew D16 deserved better. Furthermore, Alphatron at least saw how strong D16 appeared and wanted to at least give him a chance. What else does he have left to lose? Perhaps Alphatron saw a better leader in D16, but we may never know. He did, however, give him the freedom to choose how he used his power. With this newfound strength, D16 uses his ability to finally gain control of his own life and take down Sentinel. What ends up happening is that when he finally gets a taste of that power, Orion notices this disturbing aspect of D16, but he doesn't comprehend the emotions that D16 is conflicted with. He can finally do whatever he wants, and he wants to stop Sentinel in any way he can. The worst part is that once he meets the High Guard, he's encouraged to seize control and prove to these insane bots that he is the leader who will liberate them, insulting Starscream, breaking his voice box, and nearly shooting him dead in the face. And now he has the shot to lead an army and go to war. Just like Orion, his voice starts gradually changing into the Decepticon we all know. Once captured, I can't help but smile as he stands up to Sentinel and refuses to kneel to anyone. It's just so Megatron. But losing his hero Megatronus Prime to the same man who oppressed him and stole his cog, he taunts him and tortures him, all to make an example of him. D16 knew what he needed to do. Blinded by rage, he knew no one could stop him from claiming his destiny. Thanks to the ambush from Orion and revealing the truth about Sentinel, now was his chance to strike. But Orion stops him. His best friend is preventing him from ending this misery and bringing down the man who made their lives a joke. After everything they had gone through,
We're better than this. Don't be like Sentinel.
to D16, that was insulting. He didn't understand why Orion would say something to make it appear as if he was anything like this pathetic coward. Why keep Sentinel alive after what he did to him? To D16, Orion was in his way, but that doesn't deter him from finishing the job. What he hadn't anticipated was Orion taking the shot for Sentinel.
Why did you do that? Why?
After everything he had done to help his friend, he never imagined he would be the one to hurt Orion and to save Sentinel of all bots. It just made no sense why he would do this. There could be no more primes like Sentinel. D16 still needed to put an end to this. Orion simply stood in his way of his goal. So he lets him go, and then destroys Sentinel, claiming that the age of primes has come to an end. There would be no more deception, and that they would destroy anyone who still values Sentinel. He can finally demonstrate his superiority with the cog that Sentinel stole from Megatronus Prime, allowing D16 to become Cybertron's rightful leader as Megatron. However, it doesn't go that way for him. As if seeing a ghost, Orion returned, but he's not the same. Now that he possessed the Matrix, which means he had become a Prime. If there's something we now know about Megatron, it's that he could no longer trust a Prime after Sentinel. Optimus needed to go, but he was no match for him, and he had already lost for the time being. D16 betrayed his friend and had to face the consequences. Before being banished, you could almost see a trace of D16 before he vanishes entirely, leaving only Megatron. Now, I understand that the film's shift was a sudden change in Megatron's development. I still like how the film handled it, and perhaps different or more ideas could have gotten even further. Nonetheless, given the length of animated films, I'm pleased with what we received. They gave the best Transformers experience. Tyree Henry delivered his best performance as Megatron, making him my new favorite voice actor to play the character. Truly awesome. Our supporting cast in this film is followed by two bots who are like polar opposites of each other, Alita 1 and B127. Their involvement was just to be along for the ride, but it doesn't mean their characters didn't have growth. Alita is pretty strict. She's usually seen doing her absolute best and doing the most that she can with what she's given. She is very capable of handling herself against any threat she encounters. Like D16, she was simply doing her job and felt qualified to issue orders, but without regard for others. She was mostly annoyed with Orion at first because she did not want anything to do with him, and he had a bad track record of getting in trouble. So for her to be fired because Orion risked his life to save someone else and disobeyed her orders to leave the cave was a crazy thing to be upset about. That's already a toxic workspace. So being fired from her job set off a chain reaction that led her back to Orion and the others. Fate brought these four together to help change Cybertron for the better. She's a fierce warrior and she knows it, which is exactly the kind of self-assurance I need every day. As Alita discovers the truth about Sentinel, she cannot help but notice Orion's actions and true feelings. And she can't believe Orion was a better bot than Sentinel. She even confronts him after all that they endured when B and D16 are captured. She actually sees a far better leader than herself to put things right. Throughout her career, she has only excelled at fighting and meeting Sentinel's quota. She is by no means a bad person. She's mostly used to a harsh work environment where you have to do everything exactly right and do not want to make a single mistake. Or you start at the bottom and you work yourself to death. Being perceived as weak is a feeling she despises, so she fights tooth and nail for a better position to prove herself. And this is a significant development in her character. She sees something in Orion that she did not see in herself, namely optimism in the face of adversity. After learning the truth about Sentinel and all his wrongdoings, Orion didn't turn away. He was prepared to take action. Following a shocking revelation, he was looking for new ways to assist the group. Alita was probably still stunned by the news. For the first time, she's unsure of what to do. She was oppressed and deceived by Sentinel. So the fact that Orion wants to do something to help her and the others allows her to begin to trust him to figure out what they're going to do to stop Sentinel. She even starts to defend him and support him from the High Guard, because she believes he has been helping her all along and wants to continue with his efforts. So let's see what he can do. It was satisfying to see how she came to appreciate Orion's nobility and leadership in exposing the truth about Sentinel, allowing all Cybertronians to have their freedom. Optimus gave her the rank she truly deserved and allowed her to make her own decisions because of her support. He believes in her now, after working well together until the end of the film. Bumblebee, or just B, I guess. He's a really fun character. He was also a fun and awesome character in Michael Bay's film, so it was fitting to see how he evolved into who he was, or still is, in this movie. He was well written and I appreciate his best moments in the film. He has an innocent nature about him, as if he wants to show the adults how smart or responsible he is. The sad part about him is that prior to his appearance in this film, he was most likely mistreated because of his extroverted personality. Like, he wanted to make friends and enjoy his life and express himself. But like the main cast in this film, he was completely unaware of the oppression he was experiencing, as well as the injustice of being forced to be isolated and make imaginary friends. Can you believe Orion killed Steve? So meeting Orion in D16 was a blessing in disguise. That moment changed his life for the better, or worse, depending on your perspective. And he doesn't change much throughout the film, which is probably a good thing, because he's already such an upbeat and kind character at heart. He's also very comical because of his actions. while he can be serious at times and not always throw quips. He's very expressive in the situation and the most cartoonish of the cast members. Plus, who knows how long it's been since he has had to communicate with someone on a level that should not exist. I appreciate how much Orion cares for him, despite only meeting him briefly and allowing him to join the adventure, and seeing him kick some butt while surprising Alita. Bumblebee is the most supportive character in the entire film, and he doesn't need to change. To me, some characters like this are not all bad. Everyone has a different sense of humor or understanding, and some characters reflect our outgoing selves in certain ways. And B knows how to lighten the mood when everything is down, providing a break from the tension that comes from different situations.
Are you serious? This is the greatest day of my life. I get to work for the government.
Sentinel Prime, like B, doesn't change. He's this film's standard villain, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're trying to tell an origin story. Sentinel is an egomaniac who wants control and power. All he needed to do was to take care of the Primes. So he made a deal with the Quintessons, and they killed the majority of the Primes. What I find intriguing about him is that he is supposed to serve as a catalyst for D16 and Orion's character arcs. So his betrayal of the Primes and deception of his people were simply steps towards ensuring this. We don't get a clear picture of why he felt compelled to take control, but it begs the question, what if a Prime could be corrupted? It fits the story well because it immerses us in the world in which they live and brings so much life to the characters. And I'm glad it wasn't downplayed. The writers and directors showed us how these characters can become dangerous or strong figures who help those in need. Anyways, Sentinel was a predictable giveaway. But again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a reminder though of what was to come for our protagonists. While it did give us a huge factor for disliking this character and how he manipulates, controls, and rules over his own people, from the way he looks at the many statues of his own face to his transformation, which differs from all Cybertronians, the fact that he got his ass handed to him by D16 was insane because he underestimated his rage. It was like getting 1v1 by Kratos. It's also amusing how Michael Bay's Sentinel is executed by Optimus Prime, while this Sentinel is brutally torn in half by D16. This guy can't catch a break. It's as if you don't know if this movie was intended for children. That's awesome. Sentinel doesn't give us much to go on because he's barely in the film, but he does have some unironically funny moments out of context. He's like a sassy Transformer who doesn't give a fuck.
No, Optimus!
The movie's animation and visuals are stunning. I was really impressed with how well they captured such a beautiful and distinct view of Cybertron. Iacon City was incredible. In terms of displaying these massive structures and the city's overall busyness, to the way roads and train tracks form themselves, how Transformers can fly and drive in various vehicle forms, the surface with the Vaporwave as the horizon, the transformations are so satisfying to see, and how they find creative ways to transform and fight in battle. To me, animation finds amazing ways to bend the rules and make scenes feel more impactful, while also surprising you with how the characters move. For example, Bumblebee is quick and impulsive, and his attacks with knife hands and blasters are sporadic and smooth. Alita's fighting style has always emphasized elegance, precise and powerful blows, and adaptability to her surroundings. D16 is a literal tank and powerhouse, destroying anyone in his path as he gradually reveals a gladiatorial side. Throughout the film, Orion is seen using methods of fighting and transformation. Then he applies some of that in combat, as well as using the power of the Matrix to give him an advantage. This is just my opinion. But during the film's climax, I noticed Orion gradually improving his combat against Megatron and the High Guard as he used his new abilities, as if the knowledge and the instincts of the previous primes are coursing through him. The characters are very expressive, and the voice actors fully immerse you in these characters and their roles. I have to say that D16, or Megatron, was one of my favorite characters in this movie. I always find villain backstories fascinating. It explains how they came to be the way they are. And Tyree Henry captures Megatron's character as more than just a villain. The story revealed a side of Megatron I had never seen before. The animation visually depicts his power and his rage. which is why I adore the expression in his eyes. The visual storytelling in which the character changes and expresses their thoughts through action. Some of the best moments are seen rather than told, which I like because it allows you to feel the weight of the scene as it unfolds. It isn't the constant banter between two friends that make them enemies. It's the internal struggle that they are both trying to overcome. In the beginning, they communicate a lot with their level of friendship and express their thoughts openly. The major shift in the film alters the characters' perceptions of their lives, making us question what will they do next. I love this film because it delves into dark themes such as oppression, authoritarianism, and resistance. It was a lot in this film, and it took me by surprise.
Are you username LadiesMan217?
I don't know what you're talking
Are
about.
you username LadiesMan217?
Again, that's just my opinion, but I would like to hear yours as well to see how you would approach this film differently. One aspect of this film that truly bothered me was the marketing team. Whoever created this trailer for the film did a bad job. This trailer, as well as the other advertisements and promotional materials, did a poor job of promoting the film, which is unfortunate. Because if the film's trailer had shown it in an epic way, I would have been interested in seeing it. I had no intention of seeing this movie, and assumed it was simply another excuse to make a Transformers film in order to make money. That frustrated me, because the film did an excellent job, and I would like to see more stories like this. I, like many others, wanted an actual sequel, and I'm willing to bet that more people would want to see it. However, due to the box office numbers, I'm not sure we ever will. Transformers 1 is the best Transformers film I had seen in a long time, and it's also an excellent animated film that I had the pleasure of seeing.